What's up, everyone? It's Gaijin Gamer here, back with another Summoner's War Lost Centuria video, and today will be episode 1 of my Spotlight videos covering both Hwa as well as Ragdoll. So without further ado, let's hop right into it. Alrighty, everyone, and kicking things off, we have Hwa here, and as promised, we'll kick things off here with the Soulstones. As you can see, I currently have the rare Soulstone of hers, which will burn the enemy's mana by 1 additionally to the 2 that it currently does. However, this is definitely a not very useful stone in my opinion, just due to the fact that oftentimes if your opponent sees that you're going to utilize Hwa's ability, they are going to spend all of their mana. Thus, you will be able to decrease their amount of mana drastically lower or by 0. Oftentimes your mana or your opponent will use all of their mana, causing their opponent to lose 0 mana. So that's kind of defeats the purpose of the stone in my opinion. Next up we have the Epic Soulstone, which will decrease the mana cost of Burning Whip, which is nice because it'll allow you to cycle that ability a little bit faster, as well as get to your next character's ability. And if you're on Swift, it'll make her ability cost 2 initially, so that's pretty great actually. And then finally we have her best Soulstone, which will be the legendary one. Go figure. And this one will increase the number of attacks by 2 with a 60% chance when using the Burning Whip. Now this is actually an amazing Soulstone, just due to the fact that her damage output will be absolutely insane, because her combo currently does 3 attacks, I believe, and this will increase the damage almost by 50%. That's absolutely wild, and if you get this Soulstone, I would definitely consider running Hwa. Next up, we have her rune set. I firmly believe that Hwa will be best on Blade. Even looking down the road, I still think Hwa will probably be best on Blade. I think after seeing, if you haven't seen what Violent runes do, potentially there can be some sort of argument for Violent, because you can just cycle Hwa's ability, especially if that mana down stone. However, Blade gives Hwa 20% crit rate, which crit rate is extremely hard to come by, especially when you only have 3 runes. And I do believe this to be Hwa's best set. Yeah, bar none. So moving on, we'll head over to our boy Ragdoll. Alrighty, everyone, and as you can see, we have our boy Ragdoll here. Now, first and foremost, I am absolutely not a fan of how Ragdoll looks in this game. In my opinion, no offense to Comp to Us or anything like that, but this unit specifically looks a little trash in my opinion. Feel free to disagree with me in the comments below, but first and foremost, we'll cover Ragdoll's Soulstone. As you can see, the rare Soulstone, in my opinion, is actually not too bad on Ragdoll, as it increases the damage by 15%. Never bad, especially when you're kind of running an ability that will do a lot of damage. Next up, we have the mana decrease for Ragdoll's ability. Still pretty nice, kind of allows you to cycle it, not too bad. And then the legendary ability, your mana cost decreases by 1 each time the ally in your line receives a critical damage up to 2. Now this one's kind of interesting, but definitely gimmicky. Personally, I'm not quite sure how I feel about this. I think if you were to run the stone, Ragdoll becomes way better in the front row, just due to the fact that your tanks are getting attacked way more than your back row, more often than not. And if your opponent uses ability that hits, purely the back row, which there really doesn't exist very many abilities, well, in that case, you just be SOL. But I just feel that there's more abilities that are going to cover both the front and the back, or just the front. So that might be something to look out for. However, actually, to be honest, I think maybe the rare stone's not probably the best for Ragdoll, but yet to be determined. Next up, we have Ragdoll's runes. And now I currently have Ragdoll on a Fatal set. However, I do believe that Blade is also the best set for our boy Ragdoll here. Same reasons as Hwa, he's definitely sort of an assassin type ability, as well as crit rate is so hard to come by, and 20% is absolutely wild. The fact that you're getting 20% crit rate or 15% attack, in my opinion, is slightly a bit of a joke. I definitely think they need to reevaluate the strength of the runes and what the set's bonuses will do. However, Ragdoll kind of does an interesting attack, and he will target the last person that has activated their turn completely. You cannot interrupt and then counter that person that just cast that ability. The ability has to be cast, wait for it to finish, and then you're able to attack with Ragdoll. Then, after it's done, it's going to mark them, and a dragon will fly by at a later time and deal additional damage to everyone else in their row as well. So it's kind of a unique little, ability that Ragdoll has here. And without further ado, we'll hop into why I think Hwa as well as Ragdoll are quite the dynamic duo. Alrighty everyone, and before hopping into some gameplay footage of this dynamic duo, I just wanted to quickly explain potentially some team comps that you could run in order to kind of increase the success rate of these comps. So first and foremost, we have our front four, which oftentimes I use in most of my comps, to be quite honest, just due to the fact that we have two beefy characters up front, as well as a Bernard for some acceleration, or a Megan, as well as our deceleration in the form of Poseidon. Also, you can use Ganymede here, just in my opinion, it's a little bit worse just due to the fact of higher mana cost. Next up, I chose Beretta here just because we're attempting to keep applying pressure to the back row enemies, and he's someone that can hit the back row as well as the front row. So it'll keep that damage down for Hwa to kind of target the lowest health opponent. So because oftentimes we're trying to kill stuff in the back row of our opponents so that they have less time to attack with said units. Next up, we have good old Ragdoll, and he's awesome right after an opponent that's kind of like a high threat finishes using ability. We will use Ragdoll, and then ideally the character that is a huge threat in the back line will be low health after we attack with Ragdoll, thus allowing Hwa to then activate and kind of attack not the front target but the lowest health target, which will be that Ragdoll just attacked, thus killing the target, burning your opponent's mana, and just all sorts of goodness. Now, I do like Lapis in slot 8, however for this team, maybe some more AoE damage is kind of in order, maybe like a Tessarion here and kind of moving these two back. Just, kind of try out and feel out what you may. But without further ado, we'll just kind of hop in and show you how these two work. Alrighty everyone, and now in this matchup, let me just preface this with I do not have the best runes on both Hwa as well as Ragdoll, so if you decide to kind of make this comp, you can definitely make it better with better runes. Let me start by saying that. So as per kind of discussed prior to, we're just kind of chip away, do some AoE damage, get to a point where our opponent uses a deadly, person with a deadly ability such as Beretta, and as you can see, I kind of instantly went for this ability straight onto Beretta. We did a fair amount of damage. I think that can be much higher if we had better runes on Ragdoll here. So as you can see, my opponent's, still cycling his Beretta abilities, which is definitely good and definitely effective, and I'm just going to kind of respond with my own AoE damage here. And as you can see, my opponent's going to, kind of kill off my frontline tank here, thus healing his character, which will then make Beretta the target of my Hwa's ability, as we kind of intended. And as you can see, I just casually just sniped that Beretta, and he has absolutely no chance. We just kind of just absolutely obliterated that Beretta. So we're just going to continue to push AoE damage. That way we keep everything low and just keep the threat up. So that way when we use our next Ragdoll ability, hopefully we'll be able to snipe whatever's next. So we're just going to transfer off all of these nasty little debuffs to my opponent here. He's going to kind of cycle his Poseidon. That's not a terrible play. Just will continue the AoE damage. We're kind of waiting probably for Tessarion here, or potentially, Thrain to use an ability, which we can then, kind of counter. However, luckily for us, the Tessarion kind of, according to plan, got low, and Hwa was able to be used right there. So as you can see, you don't always have to activate the low health with this comp via the Ragdoll, which is kind of ideal. However, as you can see, we're not using this Lapis in this comp very often, just due to the fact that she's not really providing anything to the table that we want to kill, because she only targets the front row. So as stated, maybe Tessarion on our side of the field may be a little bit better of a selection. And as you can see, I'm not really playing the best in this game, so I do apologize. This is mostly just to show you the interaction between Ragdoll as well as Hwa. Now as you can see, my opponent pulls out a Big Daddy spoil right here, and that is going to dispel the end of this game. Alrighty everyone, and as you can see we have changed up the composition to include Centuria to maybe make this just a little bit better. That way Hwa will have a little bit better ability to attack the back row without necessarily having Ragdoll to activate it. So as you can see in this matchup, we're starting with a little accelerate combo right now, just so that we have more mana to play around with and to put some pressure on our enemy here. As you can see, I'm just going straight for some AoE damage. There's really no need. He hasn't really used an ability that I can really counter in the back row, so I just decided to kind of chip away at his entire team here. He's gonna go ahead and try to counter my ability, and as you can see, I'm just trying to kind of sustain Copper in the front row here. So just gonna continue doing AoE damage as this comp is kind of designed to do, and he's kind of used an ability from the back row that's somewhat dangerous, so I'm gonna decide to just start taking away some of his back row threats. As you can see, use Ragdoll straight into a Hwa, and this combo is kind of a little bit wombo combo, as I like to call it, and it just absolutely obliterated that Vertiheal. So rest in peace. As you can see, my opponent's just trying to kind of gain some foothold after kind of losing one of his more important pieces in the back row here, and we're just going to keep decimating my opponent. As you can see, unfortunately my opponent doesn't have any transfers or anything like that, and well, he's dropping like a fly. But as you can see, there is quite a bit of threats on this side of the board. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to get that attack off quite quick enough to counter that vitality swap. However, I still did quite a bit of damage to that Terragos right there. He got absolutely wrecked. So we're just going to keep applying pressure to the back row here, keep them low. That way we can use Hwa next time we get her ability, or we can just continue applying AoE of pressure, whatever works best. At this point, this match is pretty much all but over. Now, you tell me, this is kind of interesting. You know, he got that entire attack off, and as you can see, I tried to activate that ability. However, it got delayed like heck, and I was unable to use it, so that was pretty unfortunate. But as you can see, we're just going to AoE down this comp. The nice thing about this comp is that it has multiple win conditions, AoE as well as the wombo combo, as I like to call it. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and end the video. Alrighty everyone, and now ending off the video, please let me know in the comments below if you like this video, A, as well as B, please let me know who you might want me to cover next in the next Spotlight video. I would really appreciate it. But without further ado, thank you guys all for watching. Please consider liking and subscribing. It would really help me and the channel out. I would really appreciate it. But without further ado, I'm Gaijin Gamer, signing out.